Guy might be falling over though. Whoops. There you go. I think Scotland's already here, which is awesome. So, just before we get started, I want to talk to you guys about this channel and hopefully these live features that we're gonna have. Oh, nice! Like Josh is here too. Awesome. So I created this new YouTube channel, just Mr. Gowdy, and just because I wanted the broadcast to actually be shown on the channel, and I didn't want to be distracting and have my other videos that were on my other channel, and I wanted these to be actually like live, not unlisted. Just some features that I wanted. Anyways, so let's try something really quick. Either Josh or Scotland, looks like there's a couple other people in here. I want you to type this into the chat. I'm gonna write it on the screen. So, whoops, let's get a bigger one. Bigger thing right here. Okay, one of you guys, I need you guys to type this, all right? So type exclamation point and then the big question. Okay, so I want one of you guys to type that. Let's see if this is working. Okay, so type exclamation point or exclamation mark, the big question. It's kind of hard to read that, but I want one of you guys to type that and see if this is working. Okay, type that into the chat. So the plan is to have these commands, that's what these things are called here in this chat. When you type exclamation point and then the big question, it should bring something up in the chat and help you guys all remember what the big question is. So I need one of you guys to type that, and I'll wait a couple more seconds to see if one of you guys can do that. If not, maybe I will type it in. I'm trying to get these live lessons to definitely be a little bit more interactive, and I know it's a little difficult sometimes to stay focused or to remember what I said. You can't raise your hand, right? On the video, I can't see you. But if you guys can type in that, so you gotta put it all one word, really close, Scotland, all one word. So, exclamation point, the big question. All right, see if it, does it not come up? Oh no. I was trying to work on this and maybe it's not all set up. Dang it. Sorry guys, I was trying to get this ready and maybe somehow I maybe I didn't get it set up. I thought it should have been set up. All right, well, you did it right, Scotland, but it's just on my end. 1 second. Let me see if I can fix it really quick. I'm not going to spend too much time on here because I want to spend time actually learning this stuff and not focus on this. I just want, yeah, just 1 second. Let me try one more time to get this set up. So bear with me really quick. Settings, community. Okay. All right, let's try this one more time. So, exclamation point, the big question. Or exclamation point. Question 1. All right, well, I'll look into it next time. I'm sorry, guys. I thought I figured it out. The point was for you guys to be able to interact with me and interact with the lesson through the chat, because that's the only way we can interact with one another. And but just maybe, yeah. I'm not for sure, guys. Sorry. Oh, there you go. Nice. It's working. Cool. Do you guys see that? Those Nightbots? Okay, so maybe it's working now. I'm not for sure why you were timed out, Josh, but it looks like it's working now, right? See those Nightbot things? So we have, there's the big questions and like question 1 that just pulled up. So it looks like it's working. Again, I'm not for sure why you were timed out, Josh. This is going to be a learning process for all of us, especially as I continue to try to figure out how to make this lesson a little bit more interactive, and get you guys, talking about the lesson and asking questions and answering questions in the chat. So, okay, looks like you're back in, Josh. There you go. All right. So, like right there, do you guys see the big question right there from the Nightbot? That's what the command, this computer generated other partner of mine is called the Nightbot. It's just a system. That way, so right there, if you can see in the Nightbot, and right here is the big question for chapter 3, right? So let's get started. The big question is, why might it be said that Wu Zhao, that's how you say this name right here, Wu Zhao's rise to power was an extraordinary achievement? Can you share the screen, how you see the thing you told us to put in the chat? Yeah, 1 second. Let's just create a Word doc. And I guess I don't mind taking some time doing this for those that are watching this as a replay. This is going to be important. If you can't ever make it to a live lesson, you'll be able to know what to type in the chat. All right. So these things that we're going to be showing are called commands. All right, that you're going to type. Commands to type in chat. Okay. So it will always start with an exclamation point, all right? Let's make these a little bigger. An exclamation point. So one is called the big question. We'll have question 1, question 2, sorry, and there needs to be no space. So, and then all the way up to question 10, we'll have 10 questions today. And so when I say a question and you can't remember it, you can type like question 9 or question 8 in the chat and it will pull up, okay? Hey, it looks like, is that Caden? Caden that's joined us? It's awesome. Looks like we have, and then we got Jennifer and Chloe in here. Glad to have you guys here. So these right here are the commands that you can type in chat. All right, so when we start reading, I'll bring up the first question. And if you don't remember what I said, you can type this in the chat, exclamation point, question 1. And then if you did hear what I said, but you can't remember, you could type in exclamation mark, hint 1, and that will bring up a hint for you to help you answer the question. Because as I'm asking you questions, I want you to type in the chat what you think the answer is. If you know the answer, that's great. But if you don't know the answer, I want you to try. That's a big thing. We can try and we learn from our mistakes. And as we try, that helps us learn a lot easier. Oh, Sunny's here too? Awesome. So, and then these are on 60-second timers. That means I should have just made this all that same thing. So I don't want people to keep typing the same commands over and over again. So if you're paying attention, the first one to type it in the chat will be able to get it, right? I don't want a bunch of people typing in the same command. All right, and then now you can just see Nightbot just popped up, and it's just a reminder to keep following along, making sure that everything that we're talking about is focused and centered on the lesson, and then to help you guys remember to, stay interactive, stay active in the lesson. So let me show you again. In the chat, I'm gonna type exclamation point, the big question, all one word, and then it should pull up in a few seconds the big question, all right? See, right there. Why might it be said that Wu Zhao's rise to power was an extraordinary achievement? And that's the big question, okay? So I'm going to continue to learn how to do this online learning and using this platform to help it be as fun and enjoyable and helpful for you guys to like learning and to learn from this crazy time that we're in and having to be online. So hopefully each time that we get in live, I have another cool feature for us to help it be more interactive and help us remember what we're learning a little bit better. Alrighty, so let's jump into, maybe I can I make this like small? There we go. So those are some examples of things that you can type. All right. Hopefully I don't want it to be distracting, but there you go. Keep it right there. Okay. So what are some of the things that we've covered so far in the dynasties of China? We learned about the very first emperor, who was Shi Huangdi, and he thought he was going to have a very long reign, or his dynasty was going to be very long, but we learned that it wasn't very long, but that he did do some good things, that he united China by unifying the monetary system with the coins that had the hole in it. He also wasn't a very good leader. He was a tyrant, if you remember. He did some terrible things. And then what did we learn last time in chapter 2? We learned about the Han Dynasty, and we learned about, sorry, I had to get a little reminder too. So we learned about two things that during the Han Dynasty that the Chinese invented, and that was very important to their wealth and their growth. You had to rejoin the vid. So what are the two things that were invented during the Han Dynasty? Two things that were important for their growth of the Han of Chinese and were very important to them. They used silkworms to create silk, and they sold silk all across, the eastern part of the world. And then they also invented paper. Alrighty, so chapter 3, we're going to learn about Wu Zhao. All right. So the city of foreigners in the year 638 CE, an imperial carriage hurried through the countryside on its way to Chang'an. I can't remember if I pronounced that right. Sorry. The city of China. The carriage rocked and swayed as it went. In the back of the carriage sat a 13-year-old girl named Wu Zhao. The young girl was going to live in the imperial palace. The emperor at that time was Ti-Jung of the Tang Dynasty, or Tang Dynasty. All right, so in these first two paragraphs, we've pointed out two key vocabulary words. And what do? We go to our vocabulary box and we look up what these vocabulary words mean. And maybe you already knew what a foreigner was, and maybe you already knew what imperial meant. But let's cover those. So a foreigner is a person who comes from another country. Maybe some of you guys were born in another country and then moved here to the United States. Or maybe your parents were born from another country and ended up moving here. My wife's mother was born in Germany, and then they ended up moving here. So in some instance, maybe she is called a foreigner, even though her parents were, citizens of the United States. So maybe not technically, but. All right. So can you imagine how Wu Zhao must have felt? She had probably never been away from her home and her family before. However, Wu's mother had become a widow and had decided that her daughter would be better off living in the palace. Yeah, so most of you guys are probably around 8 or 9 years old. Can you imagine leaving your home right now here in Gallup and going to a different country and in a very big city, the capital city? So, have you been to Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States? A very busy city. That would be tough and frightening, right? At such a young age. So here's a little picture of Wu Zhao, who became the only woman to ever rule China as an empress, and that's what we're going to cover a little bit more is her rise to being the leader of China. All right, so Wu Zhao's new life. Alrighty. So sorry, one thing I forgot to bring up was our primary focus objectives. Sorry, I was so focused on getting our Nightbot thing. Yeah, I'm not for sure what's going on, Josh. Just only put a. I'm not for sure what you're trying to type. Yeah, don't be typing a whole bunch of symbols like that. You might get booted out of the chat, which is a good thing because I want everything to be focused. Yep. So remember what the Nightbot says. It says in chat to stay focused on the lesson. All right. So don't be spamming. Don't be typing random symbols or random things in the chat, or you will get timed out. All right. So keep things focused on the chat. And remember that if you are trying to type the big question or the question one, this is how you type it right here, okay? Okay, so our primary focuses for today, for this chapter, is we're going to learn about the expectations for young women in China. We're also going to learn about the capital city of China. We're going to learn about Wu Zhao and her extraordinary rise from humble beginnings to being the first and only empress of China. And the last thing that we're going to learn is understand the meaning of the following domain vocabulary words, which we just started doing. And we started with foreigner emperor. So those are the 4 focuses for today. All right. So let's continue with the lesson. Wu Zhao's new life. In the back of the carriage, young Wu Zhao must have been excited and scared about her new life. The roads became crowded as they approached the city of Chang'an, the largest and grandest city in the entire world at that time. Merchants carried luxury goods from the Silk Road, filled the streets leading to the capital. The carriage came to a high wall, and prepared to pass through one of the 4 great gates that led into the city. Wu Zhao saw amazing things. Roughly 1 million people lived in Chang'an. Many of them were foreigners: Koreans, Japanese, Arabs, Persians, Turks, Indians, and even Africans. So that kind of sounds like the capital of our country, Washington, D.C. But then I also think about New York. I've never been to New York, but whenever I see videos of New York, I see, a lot of different people from different countries. Maybe they're not technically foreigners, maybe they're African American or Asian American, but people that probably came from different countries. So Wu Zhao had never seen so many different kinds of people. They looked strange to her. Hey Kate, remember, keep chat clean, all right? Don't type random things in the chat, please. Keep it focused. Yep. If you keep typing random things in the chat, I just will time you out for a little bit longer than just 5 seconds, like what's happening right now. So they spoke languages she could not understand. Everyone on the street, even the Chinese themselves, dressed like foreigners. Women wore tightly fitted dresses that followed the fashions of Persia. Rich Chinese men wore hats made of leopard skin. The music that rose up in the streets was unlike anything she had ever heard. In the two great city marketplaces, merchants sold exotic goods, foods, plants, perfumes, medicines, fabrics, and jewels from foreign lands. As her carriage drove through the streets, Wu Zhao saw many monasteries, temples, and shrines for the Buddhist religion that had come to China from India. All right, so there are 2 more vocabulary words. All right, so let's focus on these really quick and learn what shrines and the Buddhist religion is. Maybe some of you guys are Buddhists or know Buddhists or have heard about that religion. And then maybe you guys know what shrines are. A shrine is a place considered holy because it's associated with a religious person or a saint. So maybe there's shrines in different religions, right? Maybe it doesn't have to be Buddhist. It could be Christian or Muslim. Different religions might have shrines. Buddhist religion is also called Buddhism, a religion originated in India that is based on the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama. Sorry, I should have looked up how to say that word. Alrighty, so first question, all right. What did Wu Zhao see as her carriage drove through the city of Chang'an, the capital city of China? And I want you guys to answer that are here in chat. And then those that are watching the replay, think about that. And if you can't remember the question, remember the command, all right? You can type this command in the chat, and that will help remind you what the question is. And if you're trying to answer the question but can't remember, you can type in this command, hint 1, exclamation point, hint 1, all right? So, and remember, it has to be all one word. So, question 1, or, whoops. Hint 1. Anybody have an answer? Try to remember to follow along and interact, please. That would be awesome. All right, remember, you can type in the chat, exclamation point, question 1. And that will bring up the question, right? And then if you're still trying, you can't answer, you can put exclamation point, hint 1. And these should come up with right there. So the hint came up first. It said, the question is, what did Wu Zhao see as her carriage drove through the city of Chang'an, and what were people wearing, and what were they doing? So she was driving through the city, and there was, big marketplaces, and people from all different countries, foreigners, as they said, and they were selling a lot of different things like medicine and jewelry and fabrics. All right, so the imperial city. Wu Zhao's carriage went up the street of the Red Bird. Nice, that's cool, Caden, that your grandmother was born in Mexico. Yeah, so if she came here, right, to the United States, she might be considered a foreigner. So the imperial city, Wu Zhao's carriage went up the street of the Red Bird, a very wide street that stretched 480 feet from one side to another. At the end of the street lay the walled imperial city. The emperor lived and worked within these walls, and only certain people could enter the city within a city. All others were forbidden to do so. Even touching the wall was a serious crime. Wow, can you imagine? Can you imagine if we went to school and the principal got mad at you for touching the wall, just like going to detention? Well, that's what it was kind of like. It was a serious crime to even touch the wall within the imperial city. So if you dared to put your hand on the wall, you could be hit 70 times with a rod. That is wild. The guards at the wall allowed Wu Zhao's carriage to pass through the gate. They could tell immediately that the carriage belonged to the emperor because it was painted a brilliant red, the same color as the emperor's court. Inside the official court, seated on his throne, Emperor Chezong issued commands that affected a large portion of Asia. He ruled over a vast empire that excluded 60 million people. Thousands of government officials scurried about the huge rooms with marble floors, carrying out his orders and meeting his every desire. A question that forgot to ask. What do you think Wu Zhao's impression of Chang'an was? How do you think she felt? So going back to, well, we're still kind of covering it, right? Going back to when Wu Zhao came into the city, what do you think her impression was? And remember, if you can't remember the question, this is question 2. You can type these 2 things in the chat. And that will help you remember. So think about, how do you think Wu Zhao's impression of the capital city of China, Chang'an, and then how do you think she felt being such a young 13-year-old girl going through such a big, busy city? So the imperial city. Wu Zhao's carriage went up to the street of the Redbird, a very wide street that stretched 480 feet from one side to the other. At the end of the street lay the walled imperial city. Oh, sorry, we already read that part, yep. So we just read, because we talked about how it was a crime to touch the wall. So we're right here, second paragraph. The guards at the wall allowed Wu Zhao's carriage to pass through the gate. They could tell that the carriage belonged to the emperor because it was painted a brilliant red, the same color as the emperor's court. All right, so I'm going to keep reading, but the next question is, why did the palace guards know to let Wu Zhao's carriage continue past the walls and through the gate of the imperial city? All right, that's the next question. That's question number 3. Inside the official court, seated on his throne, Emperor Chezong issued commands that affected a large portion of Asia. He ruled over a vast empire that included 60 million people. Thousands of government officials scurried about the huge rooms with marbled floors, carrying out his orders and meeting his every desire. So Scotland was trying to get the question 1. Remember, there was kind of a 60-second timer, so I typed it just recently, so you can try typing question 1. And then Jennifer and Chloe, it looks like you guys are trying to ask for hint number 2. It just needs to be all one word. So exclamation mark, hint 2, no spaces. So try that one more time, Jennifer and Chloe, and it should work, all right? And give it a few seconds for the hint to pop up in the chat. But that's awesome that you were trying. You and Scotland, that was really good. Thank you. But Wu Zhao went to an even more secret part of the imperial city, the place where Chezong lived. Only the emperor and members of his household could enter what was called the palace city. The emperor was the only grown man allowed inside the palace city. Even the emperor's sons had to leave when they grew up. Perfect, Scotland. That's right. Yep, that's how you do question 2. Awesome. There you go. Good job. You're figuring it out. That was really good. So yeah, no spaces between. Sorry. Mine kind of looks like it has spaces right here. So here's a depiction of the emperor Chezong. He's considered the co-founder of the Tang Dynasty and one of China's greatest emperors. So really close again, Chloe. Just don't put any spaces. So exclamation point, hint 2, no spaces between the whole thing. Chloe and Jennifer. Yep, so just no spaces. Whoops. So if you were to type it in the chat, Wow, come on, get this thing. Yep, good job, Scotland. So put exclamation point, hint, 2, no spaces. I don't think you can do that. Yeah, you just type it. Just don't put any spaces. It works for Scotland. Or I'm not totally for sure. There you go. That's perfect. There it is. Yep, there you go. Nice. There came up the hint if you see it. Good job. So that was kind of a hint. So the question was, how do you think Wu Zhao's impression of Chang'an was? How do you think she felt? And so the hint was like, how would you feel if you went to Walmart for the very first time, especially during the day at like around noon and how busy it is? How would you felt? And that's kind of how Wu Zhao felt for the first time. Probably on a bigger, grander scale because it was a big city more than just a grocery store, but being, maybe 8 or 9 years old and going to Walmart for the very first time and seeing all these people, hustling and bustling would be kind of, a little terrifying, a little, make you a little nervous, but also maybe a little exciting. Why are you saying that, Nightbot? I'm not for sure what you're talking about, Caden. The Nightbot is like my moderator. He's trying to help the Nightbot help us make sure the chat is, being, clean, like nothing's being spammed or random things typed, and it helps remind us to stay focused. So it's like my assistant teacher is the Nightbot. Nightbot is the assistant teacher, helping us stay on task. All right, so the question 3 that we talked about, remember, is why did the palace guards know to let Wu Zhao's carriage continue past the walls and through the gate of the imperial city? And then question 4 is who was Te Zhang? Those are the next 2 questions that you guys can try to answer in the chat. Questions 3 and 4. And remember, if you can't remember the question, I just said it, but if you can't remember, you can type these things for 3 and then just replace the 3 with the 4. Okay, so life in the palace city. Nice, good job, Caden. That's how you type it. Perfect. Perfect, good job. Okay, life in the palace city. The emperor had one wife, but many female companions, all of whom lived in the palace city. Wu Zhao was destined to be a companion. This would be her new home. She had no idea of what to expect. Wu Zhao spent her days studying music and literature and learning to write beautifully. She dressed in gorgeous silk robes and precious jewels. She and the other women in the palace arranged and rearranged their hair and applied makeup. At that time, fashionable women painted eyebrows on their faces. The eyebrows were drawn in different ways to create different moods. One style was named Distant Mountains, and another was called Sorrow Brows. Sorrow Brows was Wu Zhao's style. Nice, good job, Jennifer and Chloe. Getting the hint for question 3. If you know the answer, you can put it in the chat. That'd be awesome to hear what you guys think for question 3. Nice, good job, Scotland. All right, so the emperor's wife and his companions walked in the gardens and played games together, including the exciting game of polo, a popular game on horseback that had recently come to China from Persia. So here looks like a little sculpture of people playing polo. And polo came from Persia, and I didn't know that until reading this. So riding at high speed, polo players had to hit a ball with a long stick or mallet. Though the female companions enjoyed the games and luxuries of the palace city, their lives were not free to worry. If any one of the women displeased the emperor, she could lose her privileges or even been sent away from the palace forever. In 649 CE, Emperor Chezong died, and according to tradition, Wu Zhao and the other women in the palace had to shave their heads and move to a Buddhist temple. They would have to live there as nuns for the rest of their lives. Wu Zhao did not want to leave the luxury of the palace. She swore she would find some way to return. All right, so we just learned that Emperor Chezong died and that all the women in the palace had to leave after his death, and they had to go live in a Buddhist temple and become nuns. And what's a nun? Well, we see that it's a vocabulary word. And so we can learn what a nun is. And maybe you already know, but for those that don't know, a nun is a woman who lives a simple religious life in a religious community of other women. So all the women that were living in luxury had to go live a simple life, probably still together. They were all women and had to go live with other women, but they had to leave behind all the luxuries. And Wu Zhao was not pleased with this, and so at the end of this paragraph we learned that she wanted to come back. She swore that she would return. Good job putting the hints for question 4. Nice, Jennifer and Chloe. The carriage was red, and it was important because it was the emperor's that's the emperor's color. The color of was red. That's right. The color of the emperor's court was red. Awesome job. Well done, Chloe and Jennifer. Really, really good. All right, so Wu Zhao had already caught the attention of Emperor Chezong. Wu Zhao had already caught the attention of Emperor Chezong's son, Gaozhong. So Wu Zhao had the attention of the emperor's son. So a year after Chezong's death, Gaozhong, now the new emperor, commanded that Wu Zhao be returned to the palace. When she was returned, Wu Zhao grew her hair back and never again left the imperial court. So a year earlier, Taejong died. Wu Zhao had to leave and go live in a Buddhist temple as a nun. But a year later, because of the attention that she garnered from the emperor's son, Gaozhong, a year later, Wu Zhao came back. And so she swore she would find a way to return, and she did come back to their court, and she never again left the imperial court. So that's really cool to hear. Nice, putting the big question. So, 2 questions that we just read about. Question 5 and question 6. All right, so that's what we're covering. Question 5 is, what was life like for women like Wu Zhao living in the imperial palace? So what was life like for Wu Zhao and the other women while they were living in the imperial palace? And the question number 6 is, what happened to the women in the imperial palace after Emperor Chezong died? So when the emperor died, what happened to the women? Did they stay? Did they go? What happened? All right, so ruthless right here. So this is our next vocabulary word, ruthless. Wu Zhao turns ruthless. So this 13-year-old girl came to the imperial city. She's growing up now, and now she's becoming ruthless. What does ruthless mean? Ruthless means cruel, without mercy or pity. Wow. Wonder why she became like that. Let's learn. Let's follow along and figure out. So once Wu Zhao returned to the palace city, she began to better understand how to survive there. Survival for Wu Zhao meant defeating her enemies. And this is what she set out to do. So she became ruthless, I'm guessing, so that she could defeat her enemies. She cleverly got rid of many people who did not favor her, including the emperor's wife and his favorite companions. She secretly killed Gaozhong's infant daughter and then tricked him into believing that his wife, the empress, had done it. Now that is ruthless. That is wildly ruthless right there. She then became Gao Zheng's favorite companion. Later she became his wife and Empress of China. Empress Wu grew very powerful. She even attended government meetings with Gao Zheng, which a woman had no right to do in China. Many at court feared her, but they could say nothing. The emperor sat behind a screen and whispered to the emperor. The empress sat behind a screen and whispered to the emperor what he should do. An ancient Chinese historian described how she decided everything, even matters of life and death, while the emperor sat with folded hands. So questions, we were just doing questions 5 and 6. And now we're learning about Wu Zhao's rise to power. Okay, so be ready to answer question either 7 or 8 should be how to summarize Wu Zhao's rise to power. That's right, good job. Jennifer and Chloe, they did have to leave the palace after the emperor died. Well done. That is perfect. Perfecto. Thanks for following along and answering. That's awesome. So we're learning that Wu Zhao became ruthless. She had the emperor's daughter killed and then convinced the emperor that the emperor's current wife had done it. And then the emperor got rid of that wife, and then Wu Zhao became the emperor's favorite companion and then became the emperor's wife. So now Wu Zhao's the empress, and she is just taking control of the emperor. She's deciding everything, behind behind the scenes, but she is basically controlling the emperor, which is controlling China. So after Gao Zhang died, one of their sons and another took over as emperor, but the real power belonged to Empress Wu. Superstition and nervous about enemies, Empress Wu planted spies everywhere, but the ghosts of her murdered rivals hunted her. In time, she could no longer stand living in the palace in Chang'an, so she moved to the capital to a new location. Empress Wu was all-powerful. She had everything except the official title of emperor, but she wanted that too. In 690 CE, a flock of bright red birds flew through the room that held the emperor's throne. A phoenix, a bird very special to the empress, was also rumored to have flown over the palace. To the empress, it was clear. Heaven had sent these birds to show that she should be the official ruler of China. She made her son resign. What does resign mean? Resign means to step down from a job or leave. So she made her son, who was the emperor, resign from being an emperor. Wu Zhao declared herself the holy and divine emperor and the founder of a brand new dynasty. For the next 15 years, Wu Zhao ruled as emperor, the first and only time a woman would do so in Chinese history. Wow. So our next question, which should be question 9, is how does the story about the birds show that Wu Zhao was superstitious? How does the story about the birds show that Wu Zhao was superstitious? So you can type in the chat if you can't remember. Exclamation point question 9 and exclamation point hint 9 if you need some help answering that. So the woman emperor, Emperor Wu had to overcome the fact that she was a woman in what was traditionally a man's world. She worked hard and became a successful emperor. She ran the empire very skillfully. During her rule, China prospered. Wu Zhao believed very deeply in Buddhism. She had many temples built, and she ordered the creation of enormous rock sculptures. Caves were hollowed out of rock walls. Inside, artists carved giant statues of Buddha from stone. Some of the largest cave figures rise as high as a 15-story building. Do we even have a 15-story building here in Gallup? I bet some of the hotels around here are close to 15 stories. So can you imagine a carving that's as tall as one of the hotels? There's a hotel by Walmart that's pretty tall. So a statue as tall as one of those hotels, that is really big. Nice, it's Chloe. Awesome. You're doing awesome, Chloe. Keep it up. All right, so at 80 years of age, Emperor Wu grew weak and sick. Some of her old enemies saw a chance to get rid of her at last. They killed her closest advisors and put Wu Zhao under house arrest. She died later that year, and the Tang Dynasty once again took control in China. Wow. That was a lot to cover, guys, and I know that we were just learning how to use this chat and these questions. So I'm really grateful that you guys are here, really grateful that you guys are trying to use the chat and to be interactive. It's been really awesome. So the last question is question number 10. How did Wu Zhao help spread Buddhism in China? All right, so think about that and try to answer that in the chat. Those that are at home watching the replay, think about it. You can put it down in the comments below, or just you can think about it yourself. But question number 10. Remember to put, that is not a very good 0. Remember to put exclamation point, question 10, no spaces, or exclamation point, hint 10 if you need some help. Nice, there you go, Chloe, got it. Hint number 9 for the question was, how does the story about the birds show that Wu Zhao was superstitious? So the birds were a sign from who? And it meant she was supposed to be what? That was your hint, huh? And I can pull this up. Question number 10, nice, Scotland. So Chloe was getting the hint for number 9, and it's right in here. Nice, Scotland. Asking question 10 and hint 10. Good job, Scotland. That's awesome. So Chloe, question 9. The phoenix was a very special bird. It was a sign from heaven that she was meant to rule, right? She was meant to be the empress of China. And then Scotland's asking about 10. How did Wu Zhao help spread Buddhism in China? And we learn about this on page 28, where the last few things that we read. Right here, she had many temples built. She had statues carved. And these things help spread Buddhism across China. And our last vocabulary word for chapter 3, and then we'll end this lesson. So I'm really glad that you guys were here. Again, I'm still working on getting these lessons to be more interactive and to help you guys really grasp and understand and learn the material that we're covering. And so if you have any ideas, don't hesitate to let me know. I will continue to work on these live lessons and helping them be more interactive. I am really grateful you guys made it here. It was awesome to be with you. Those that are watching the replay, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. And then again, our last vocabulary word before we close is Buddha. Buddha is the name given to Siddhartha Gautama, the founder of Buddhism. Okay. Well, guys, again, it was awesome having you here. Thanks for joining the lesson. I hope you enjoyed learning about Wu Zhao and her rise to becoming the first and only empress of China. Again, remember the big question. If you can't remember, you can type that in the chat. Exclamation point, big question, all one word. Sorry, exclamation point, the big question, no spaces, all one word. And then those that aren't in the chat, I'll bring this up so you can see it. is, why might it be said that Wu Zhao's rise to power was an extraordinary achievement? Think about what we read and answer that question, and I'll be posting the big question discussion post for you guys to answer. It was awesome having you guys here. We'll have more live lessons later this week. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, need help with any assignments or understanding Canvas, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I will see you guys later. Have a great day. You guys are awesome. Really enjoyed being with you today. See you guys.